Dear Diary, where shall we begin? Today is July the 8th, and we learned some things about ourself, and despite how many years I've been doing this, that is moving money and trading, there's always something new to learn. And so patience is one of those things. Needing a victory today, and I'll explain, is one of those things. Today, we're going to chat a little bit about why people stay broke. And I'm not a resident expert, but I've lived a couple of days and I've got a little bit of knowledge in my head. And hopefully, some of the things that I share will resonate with you. And maybe there'll be a few nuggets in there along the way. So, welcome to Diary of a Stock Trader. This is episode 2. And so, what did we learn today? Today, you guys, if you could see over to my right, I have a board. And on that board, I track what I do every single day, meaning what the result is. In the moment when I am trading, I will tell you guys what you definitely don't want to do is count the money. Kenny Rogers would say, you never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the deal is done. So when you're moving money in the stock market, it is important for you to focus on executing well. And I tell my guys all the time, by the way, I coach. If you're interested in any sort of coaching, see the description box. Hopefully I'll get the right stuff in there at the right time, or there's a link, my link tree. I'll hopefully put that someplace. But I tell my guys all the time, treat moving money like a business. It'll pay you like a business. It's the same thing in life, you guys. We go through this life and we're trying to do well. And each and every week, each and every month, day, year, etc., we're trying to be a better person, someone who is better this week than they were last week. But that's only some of us. I would argue that many people get very complacent in life. And part of the reason why people stay broke, and we'll talk about it, is that thing called complacency, lack of ambition, a whole lot of other things. But before we get into that, let's dive into a couple of the lessons I learned today. I've got type 2 diabetes, so I'm trying a new concoction, which is a story for another day. A new concoction. So, in the last 15 days, I would say, I have won, meaning I've made money, more than I have lost by a good bit. But the other day, and you don't know this about me, I typically invest in small cap stocks, and I like to find names that have an opportunity to run, an opportunity to move. So what I'm looking for is some volatility. I'm looking for some volume that overwhelms the stock itself. I'm looking for retail participation. We'll get into all that good stuff. But today, I really needed a win. The last 3 days, I think I've lost money. And there are reasons for it, and we'll eventually get into stocks as we move forward. You're going to find that we'll look at charts and we'll look at names, and I'll start to teach you some things that hopefully will be helpful to you, not only from from a stock standpoint, but also in life. And so I really found myself needing a win. I'm like, how long have I been doing this? I've been doing this a long time. And I know not to get too high or too low, because, when you move money, you want to stay very, very balanced. But boy, when you're used to winning, it's a bit of a sore spot with me. And so for the last 3 days, I guess, maybe I've lost money 2 days in a row, uh, I didn't like it. And it's the same thing in life. We go through this life and we like to win, we like to do well. And when we don't do well, we don't like it. And when we think about the market and how we move through markets, it is important for you to be very, very structured, very systematic, very pragmatic, all of the things that lead to a result that is being profitable. So today, needed I needed a win, and thankfully I got a decent one. All right, so let's jump into the topic of the day. Why do people stay broke? Sometimes you just really don't know why damn people stay broke, and I think the beginning reason is for me is that people not having money, I feel like is it's by design. And what I mean by that, I honestly feel like the system has been set up for you to stay in a box, for you to work 40 years, 40 hours a week. And then at the end of it, you're roughly 62 years old if you start when you're 22 out of college. And you hope that you had some money socked away in mutual funds. And, through that time, you've been dollar cost averaging. And for some of you, you're not making a whole lot of changes to your 401ks. There's really no such thing anymore as a pension. And so the goal for most people is they find something that they like, they do it for a long period of time, and at the end of it, they hope that they have enough money saved and they hope maybe that their house is paid for. And then they're going to apply for Social Security. Some folks will wait until they're 67, others will take it at 62 and a half. And it's hope. Hope is not a strategy. You have got to know. And because people live their lives with some sort of guidance, some sort of planning, at the end of it, they're hopeful that this thing is all going to work out. And because they don't take the bull by the horns, they find themselves usually not in a place that they thought they were going to be in for retirement. So that's one reason why. It's a lack of planning, and certainly coupled with that is a lack of education, and it's a very systematic thing. They don't teach you about money in schools. Nowadays in high school, some sort of finance class is required. There's always been something back in the day, checking and blah, blah, blah. But hell, no one uses a checking account anymore, right? Everything is so automated, so tech heavy. The skills that you need to do well financially, a lot of those skills were not taught. And so one of the things I'm going to do is to go out and spend time at high schools and try to teach them the basics of moving money in the markets. Maybe teach them about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, crypto, futures, etc. Got something in there. Excuse me. So by design, it's very systematic, very, very, very structured way to keep people in the dark. Schools don't teach it. And for most people, their parents never taught them. So, and the reason why their parents never taught them, because most of them don't know either. And so they find themselves not being taught. You go out, you either graduate from college or high school, you get a job, and if you you went to college, you are not necessarily guaranteed a job there either, because you come out of college with debt and no job, and you're searching for a job, and half the people don't even work in the industry that they actually went to school for. So it begs the question, like, why are we spending all this money to learn a skill that we usually don't use? So it's all of it is a bit of a problem, I will say. It just does not allow for a consistent way to be able to learn how to make money. Another thing is people live really above their means. You know, the habits are so poor, and we live in a country with such excesses that people find that, you know, at times they're trying to keep up with the Joneses. They spend more than what they have, and all of that is a bit of a household structural discipline sort of problem. If I don't drink this, it's going to get cold. So, you know, it's they live above their means. There's no rhyme or reason in their spending to help them move the ball forward. You've heard it said many, many times, and that is, you know, pay yourself first. And for some people, you know, they'll take out 10% of their money. They'll put that money maybe in some investments, and then they have money withdrawn out of their 401k. And then there are those who are also tithing, and then whatever is left there after your take-home pay, then that is what they live on. And there's a number typically, I think, don't hold me to it, but I think your home or where you live, that percentage of bring home, I believe it's supposed to be ideally 35% and under. Don't quote me, but it's somewhere in that neighborhood. And you've got to leave money for emergencies, vacations, all of the things that come up that go typically beyond what your pay is, what you're living off of. So structurally at home, there's a bit of a disconnect. And so people, again, they continue to struggle. And when things come up, such as, you know, the carburetor goes out, the transmission goes out, something happens where they need money, then they find themselves borrowing money or using credit cards to pay for it. And then you have these credit card companies that are taking advantage of people, and so people stay in this debt cycle. And then if they have a mortgage, literally the word mortgage is a death note. Mortgage. It's a death note. You're paying that thing for forever. You're paying so much more money back, but people certainly have wised up to that, and they've been, making that extra payment throughout the year to try to lower the number of years, maybe 2 extra payments. Some people are deploying HELOCs to be able to use a strategy that is very, very different from your traditional mortgage. We'll eventually have some folks on from the mortgage industry to go over all of that in an interview to help you guys. But there's so much information out here. I would say it's troubling that humans, you, me, we all don't do better than what we're doing, because literally anything you need to know, it is just about out there. Now it's a function of, can you or will you, are you willing to execute on a very, very sound plan that can not only get you out of debt, that can teach you things, and that can give you a brighter financial future. Another thing, a reason why people they stay broke is there's a fear of investing. So many times I'll talk to people about, hey, listen, you need to learn about moving money in the stock market. And the reason why I tell them that is because I know how it has changed my life and the lives of my 5 other family members. We'll get into it another time. We, suffice to say, made a lot of money, and it was all because of moving money in the stock market, which I do full time. And so there's this fear out there, I think, with a lot of people about investing, and the fears, I think for the most part, are unfounded. They're fearful because they've been conditioned to be so. The stock market, it's so crazy, it goes up and down and all these other things. You need to give your money to the mutual fund manager. They pat you on the head, they take your money, I'll take care of it for you. We'll dollar cost average in, and everything will be all right. We've got this long-term time horizon, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of that is true. Moving money over the long term by dollar cost averaging in can be a very, very good strategy, as long as you're keeping up with maybe when it's time maybe to switch your portfolio around a bit. Maybe we're going to be experiencing a bit of a recession, and then you might want to move some of your mutual funds and how your money's coming out of your paycheck to something that is maybe a little bit more conservative if you were in very growth heavy sort of stocks. But we're going to pull back, and maybe you were in a lot of chips and AI stocks and all the rest of it. If the economy is going to pull back and capex spending or capital expenditures are going to lessen, then that whole opportunity may not be as good as it once was, and you may need to have shifted gears, and a lot of people don't shift gears. So, but investing for the long term is a very, very smart strategy. And especially if someone else is handling for you. But if you're doing it yourself, and you learn some things, you will find that the returns are greater, can be greater, when you create your own portfolio and you manage, your own basket of stocks. So there's this fear out there of moving money. Looking at some of my notes. So why do people why don't they ever start trading? Why don't they ever start investing? I think it's tied into all of the reasons that we've already said. They weren't brought up to invest. No one taught them at the house. They don't teach it in school. The marketplace encourages you to do, to have mutual funds and 401ks, and let professional money managers handle it. And then it's just their own personal fear, folks, that have talked to them, whether it's a relative or a spouse or whatever, or their own personal experience. There's this fear in the marketplace. And I think, the day and age that we live in, with so much information readily available to you, the fear should be a lot less than what it is. And I don't know how if there's a poll out there that says, here are the amount of people who are fearful over investing, and that's why they never get started. I don't know. I feel like the young people that I've spoken to, and people who are my age or middle age, they're certainly, over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, there has been a whole lot more people willing and they're very interested in learning about their money, and that's a good thing. Are the majority certainly still fearful? without question. I think majority are certainly still fearful. So people just they they stay broke because they don't try. And if you're listening to this, don't be one of those individuals that stays broke because you don't try, because you were fearful. You checked all of the boxes that I just laid out there. You have got to make some daggone changes. Come out of your comfort zone. What's the phrase that they use? For things to change, you've got to change. What's another one? Proper planning prevents poor performance. You got to get in there. You got to start to put pen to paper and lay some stuff out. Why are things going to be different? Another one, something about if you keep doing the same thing but you're expecting a different result, that's the definition of crazy, right? There's so many of these sayings that are out there, but I want to encourage you that it is possible. In the first episode, this is only episode number 2, and if you would share it, if you like some of the things that I'm saying, please subscribe and please take the time to share it, post it somewhere, because I'm going to do my absolute best once we start to get into not only life, but we'll get into the markets, and hopefully I can teach you some things. But you've got to lean in. You've got to want it. You want to be ideally, more ambitious, less fearful, more of a go-getter, more of an individual who says, damn it, I'm going to take control of this money. I'm 59 years old, and I have some very, very high goals. When I was 11 years old, I remember I may have been the only kid that did not go to the 6th grade trip to Washington, D.C. And you know what? I still haven't been to Washington, D.C. Some 43 years. Hell, what was 6th grade? Is that 11? 11? Yeah, 11 years old. So 48 years later, still haven't been to D.C. to walk around to the museums. But I'm going to get there. But when I was 11, I remember laying on my bed, laying on my back, thinking, one day I'm going to have some money. Money's not going to prevent me from doing what I want to do. And it's always kind of burned a hole in my head. It's seared in there. This thing, this thing that we all must overcome in life, and that is being able to live the kind of life that we want to live, to be able to have the money to be able to live the life that we want to live, because the reality is you can't do anything without it. Yeah, maybe you can live in a tiny home, off the grid somewhere, or you take your money. I know people that have taken their U.S. dollars and they've moved to Tulum, Mexico, or they've moved to the Dominican Republic. They've moved to Peru. They've moved to a lot of places because their dollar goes further. And what that means is, for those of you that don't really quite understand that, is you can buy more for less. I can take my $2,000 a month Social Security check that I get, plus any 401k money I have, plus anything, from the sale of the house and all of the things. But when I get to a different country, my $2,000 will buy me this in the United States, but my $2,000 buys me a lot more in one of these other countries. So I can live, ideally, in theory, a better life. I don't have to worry about working a part-time job in my retirement. So you'll find some expats or expatriates that move out of the country, they're able to access their US dollars and their retirement accounts and everything, and they decide to live out their days in another place. And so people, they most people retire with little or no net worth. Most people retire broke. Most people rely heavily on Social Security to be able to make ends meet. Most people are waiting until they're 67 to even take Social Security, and their asses might only live until they're 77. For me, give me my money right now. 3 more years from now, I'll be 62. Just give it to me. You know, I don't expect to ever need it, but I'm taking it now because I'll take that money and I'll put that money to work. You see the difference? Me taking the money and putting the money to work, making money on the money. And now I've got this 5 years of money that I've been putting to work. And sure, when you finally take it, you get a few $100s extra every month. But by that time, I won't have been, the money that I put to work is going to far outstrip, providing I do it right, it's going to far outstrip anything you're going to be able to do when you start taking it at 67. Some of these strategies and belief systems, they stem from my success in the marketplace and knowing what is possible. Don't be broke. You've got to decide, like, enough is enough. Is damn it is enough. Put together a game plan. Put pen to damn paper. Pen to paper. Ask ChatGPT, ask Claude, ask Google, ask some damn body, right? And start to figure out, what do I need to do to find success? Whatever that looks like for you. Success looks very different for a lot of people. Success could be, I live in a manufactured home or a home, right, that's paid for. I have enough money to take care of myself and maybe a spouse. I'm able to occasionally take a couple of trips throughout the year. I don't worry about money. I've got enough to put food on the table, and then I've got some extra at the end of every single month so that I can get out and do some things and enjoy my life. Wonderful. That is fantastic. And for other folks, you know, they're house poor, or, you know, the bills, they may live in a home that's far bigger than yours, but they're stuck in the rat race and they never got things set up the way that is, I would say, healthy. You know, so listen, having money is a good thing if you're grounded. There's nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of money. But I always tell people, be happy and be healthy. Those are the two things I would focus on. Be happy and be healthy. My mother died at age 58. I'm just turned 59. She had congestive heart failure. She had diabetes. She was depressed. She was anxious. She lived, she had a challenging life. And she used to say to me, Gina, because my dad's Eugene and I'm Eugene, and she would never usually call me Gene. She'd call me Gina, sweetheart. She would say, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so that has always stuck with me. And no matter, you know, if my pursuit is doing well financially, it is important. My type 2 diabetes health concoction. It is important to be happy, which I am, and to be healthy, which I am for the most part. I'm very, very thankful the state of my health. But I've got to reverse this type 2 diabetes. We'll talk about that at another time. Maybe it'll tie into making money. It is important for me to not be broke because I have a wife that's 14 years younger, and I have 4 children, 18 years down to 11, 18, 16, 14, and 11. And it is important for me to see my 11-year-old daughter get into her early 40s. So 30 years from now, she'll be 41. 30 years from now, I'll be 89. And if I stay happy and healthy, right? Keep my mind sharp, keep moving, keep going, keep engaging in things like investing, keeping sharp, and creating a plan now, which I have, so that I am not broke later, is very important. Made some money, we'll get into that another time, but it is important for you to figure out how to be financially sound. It's very, very important. You don't want to go through life stressed to hell and back over money. Put together a plan. If I can help you with any of that, I'm not a financial planner, although I used to be. There are some things I can share with you that are very, very basic that would help you. But again, all of this information, it's on the internet. The only thing you have to do is ask and give it some information. AI can put together quite a nice plan for you. Give it all of your information. Here are my bills. Here's how much money I make. Here's my time horizon that I want to get myself in a better financial position. Here's what our life is like. Here's what my expectation is. Here's what I think I'll get for Social Security. Here's how much I have in my 401ks. Here's how much, extrapolating or the numbers, I think the word's extrapolate, years out, if it earned, say, 10% a year, here's what it should be worth 10 years from now. Here's my overall setup. I know ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, I know you're not a financial planner, and I know, it's my responsibility, but given what I've told you, can you create a plan for me that takes me to X amount of dollars by X amount of years from now? And if you put together a plan and you stick to it, you'll find that people who plan and it's actually written down, those people tend to get it done. So I'll leave you with that. We'll eventually get into stocks. We will. Maybe by episode 4, I'm sure. We'll start to get into it. So what will I say to start to end these episodes? I'll say every trade, every investment, everything that you do it represents, I would say, a story. So your job is to make it all count, to make what you do tell your story. All of it is very, very important. I would encourage you to do it. And I guess be well and trade well. Until next time, we'll see you soon.